Hi, I'm Rigger, and this is You Alright, and today I'm jumping onto something new for this channel, but not new for me, filmmaking discussions. Before you watch this video, this absolutely contains spoilers of Volume 8, Episode 2 of RWBY. Don't watch it if you haven't seen it. That's your warning. For the rest of you, please be sure to like the video if you like it, share it if you could, leave a comment so we can discuss things, and subscribe if you want to see more. I am always on the side that just saying something is bad is not really worthwhile. I might say it in passing the first time reviewing something because that's what's on my mind, but we all gain nothing by simply complaining and critiquing without providing ideas or solutions. Whining or being mad with nothing to add helps no one. I don't know how old my audience is, how many of you are in the workforce, but if you are, you'd know you don't go to your boss with problems, you go to your boss with suggestions and solutions to the problems. So I'm going to do just that with this video. So, the Hound attack. So this scene has caused some disputes already. People on one side saying it's fair how their reaction was presented, and those saying it wasn't. I was on the side that said it wasn't, but let's understand it's not really about the writing. All RWBY critics is always writing this and writing that. Look at the name of my channel. If it was about writing, I'd be talking about the writing. There are some issues there, but this is not one of those videos where you jump in and blame the writing because it's not really about that. It's actually a lot to do with the direction and the staging of the scene. There's a lot you can improve without really changing much. It's all in the presentation. Let's quickly cover some small things they could have done to correct some of these issues without really changing the scene. Now, this is not me saying I could outright have done it better or they're bad at doing it. I'm not being hyperbolic. It's about learning and reassessing. Running a show is a gargantuan process with lots of moving parts, especially in animation. But so much can be learned in hindsight and applied later, so let's do that. Let's examine the scene and go over 6 quick ideas that came to mind on how to improve it on a filmmaking level. Things we can do with the camera, timing, staging, editing, and presentation that have helped get across what they wanted to deliver while reducing some of those negatives people feel about the scene, including myself. But first, we have to set some ground rules, because for me to come in and say the way to fix this is a 2-episode epic fight scene isn't helpful or realistic. The budget, time, and story aren't accommodating for those things, so we have to very strictly keep it to within the bounds of the times and resources available so we can try and reshape the scene so it flows better for us without being complete fantasy and therefore useless criticism. So, for this to be an effective video, you'll have to be familiar with the scene, but as long as you are, let's get started. Number 1, keep focus. So, if you're familiar with the scene, you know that the 2 big issues that feel weird is the 2 long pauses where they're just watching. The first one where Oscar is attacked, and the second one where it grows the wings. The second one feels worse, and there is a good reason for that. So this point is primarily focused on the second of the long pauses, the transformation with the wings. One of the big mistakes here is cutting away to this wide shot. While it's transforming, it can suck in the viewers, and you don't notice the time passing. You don't focus on that everyone is just standing around. You become enthralled in the detail of the shot, but then this wide shot reminds the viewer that that's what they're doing. It's not a perfect example, but you know transformation scenes in like Power Rangers and animes like Sailor Moon and Digimon, they sort of go into a pocket dimension for these details. I'm not saying we should do that, but you use the same principles. You can keep it here on the street, but the same rules apply. That these details in the transformation keep you engaged and you don't think about the people watching. That's why it became a good joke online recently is, you know, the people watching the Power Rangers transform just standing around like idiots because you don't think about them at the time. It's funny in retrospect. So for them to cut to this shot reminds us that's what they're doing. Interestingly, they actually kind of avoided this the first time around in the first pause, yet they make the mistake immediately after. Which is why the first one feels a lot better. It stays very tightly focused on Oscar being mauled by the Grimm and you don't get as much of the people there standing there watching him. But unfortunately in the second occasion, these wide shots do literally put it back in your head, oh yeah, they are just standing there. This could have been easily avoided. Number 2. Maintain motion. So this one is for the first attack. There's a different issue here. It's the start and stop of the action that makes their reactions feel off and feels like it takes so long. Pauses in action can be fantastic and make a scene. When dueling swordsmen rattle off a flurry of blows and then pause to reassess. Or a gunfight goes quiet and those tensions about when the next shot will come. It raises the stakes. Those work, but you need an exchange for that. Here there hasn't been an exchange. The hero's side hasn't started, they're still flat-foot and you can feel that it's far too long. The big issue here is the presentation of Yang's reaction. Because the Hound jumps in, attacks Oscar and transforms, and then it cuts to Yang who is stopped. And then she yells for Oscar and then moves to attack. It reminds you that she was just sitting there this whole time. There's an easy way to avoid this, because the big issue is you realize that you didn't hear anything from the others reacting while Oscar was being mauled. It's like they were all on pause and then the scene cuts to them and then they start their bit. It's janky and it feels step by step, and that reduces the feel of action. It feels like they're not doing anything. Rather than give that pause, you can easily change this with a slight edit. What you do is you start with her already in motion. Rather than seeing her stopped dead, react, then speed off, you instead start with her yelling. You hear her first before you cut to her, and then when the camera does cut, she's already speeding towards the Hound. That makes you feel like things are more kinetic and the scene is moving on outside of what you're seeing. So even though she took far too long to react anyway, your mind won't linger on it because the action keeps moving, things keep moving, it feels like the world keeps moving outside of the attack. Yes, it cheats time. We do that all the time on every single thing we ever present on screen. And there will always absolutely be really cynical people who will sit there and then nitpick that still. You can pick it apart, you can do that with any film, but your brain, for the average viewer, won't pick up on it, and it keeps things moving and feeling a lot smoother. Things are moving. This is also why things like Yang lying face down on the ground for so long feels off, because she hits and then remains in camera. Everything stops again, so it reminds you she's still just laying there. The others aren't moving, and it's over 10, I think it's 12 seconds before Yang gets up for her cue to look at them and yell her line. Because nothing happens in that space, and you see her on screen, it keeps you feeling like everyone is just waiting around. Again, where you position the camera, what you choose to show, and how you edit these things can really help improve this scene. It might shave a little bit of time off the scene, so you might have to slave some time elsewhere if that's your concern, but it's going to make this important scene feel a lot smoother. But because nothing happens and we linger, it keeps that feeling like everyone is just waiting around. Number 3. Exchange actions. So another thing that makes this feel so long is the Hound attack on Oscar initially is paced wrong. We mostly keep focus so that you don't notice the time passing, which is good, but then we pause for the evolution of the Hound. A simple slight reordering of events would really help increase the pace here. A very simple metaphor for what I'm talking about is one used in this volume a lot, and it's a chess game. One side should make a move, then the other. If one side makes 2 moves, it feels like the other side isn't doing anything, and that's what happens here. Move 1 is attacking Oscar. Move 2 is transforming. Then, the hero side, Yang attacks, that's their first move. So, structurally it makes it feel like it takes way too long for our heroes to react, when simply changing some stuff around would really help improve the pace of this and make everyone feel like they're doing things. So what you need to do is you have the Hound attack Oscar, keep it tight, everything we talked about. And then, while it's attacking Oscar, you hear Yang shout and dive in to attack. Then you have it counter, and I would say counter it with this whip-like arm it uses later, but use that on Yang here, rather than the grab it actually does use in the show. So it still looks like a dog, she races at it, and it whips her aside and into the wall. Then you have it transform, and the rest of the team then can be wary because it just did something crazy to Yang, and then it evolves. So, you have first attack, first move to the Hound attacking Oscar. Then first move to our heroes as Yang attacks. Then you have the counter where it attacks back and transforms. So each side has made one move and now the Hound has made its second. This makes it feel like our heroes are doing things, not just standing around so long. Not to mention the weird whip arm is a good build up to the transformation, rather than starting with the transformation which is crazier than the whip arm later, which is sort of a bit disappointing after that. In reality, yes, Ren and Jean haven't done anything, but your brain won't remember that. Your brain will stick on, it attacked, then the heroes attacked back with Yang, and then they lost, and now it's transforming, and then it's our hero's turn again. You will stay on the pace of the scene. Number 4, move your feet. So this is really a big one. Things feel like everyone is just standing here because they are just standing here. When the Hound moves with Oscar, the teams stay in place and let it walk. Hostage or not, they should be moving with it, walk with it, circle it, keep looking for openings, like any hostage situation. Keep with your target rather than watch him walk away. Because for this section, it's presenting Oscar as a shield. I'll cover that in the next point, but for now you should be off your bikes, weapons up, and walking and moving and communicating. Talk around it, call out ideas. Sure, it can hear you and probably understands you. That's fine. But keep the pace moving, keep the scene moving. Then it makes more sense that since you are moving with it, that you aren't just letting it walk away, and it probably thinks turning its back on you is a bad idea, because it really is a bad idea. It evolves wings to escape, and you feel more competent as huntsmen and huntresses. You feel like people who've done this for years, because you are. You don't just give up and let it leave. You're actively trying things even though they don't work and you can't do anything. Just because they won't find an opening or a solution doesn't mean you shouldn't show them trying to find an opening and a solution. It's basically all for show, but that show is for the audience's sake. It works for us. It keeps the scene from feeling still and it keeps things moving. It stops everyone being so rooted in place. It's the illusion the characters are trying things, and that's what we need. Just because the show knows that those things won't work, and just because they're not going to get to try any of them, doesn't mean we shouldn't see them thinking about it and being professional about this. Number 5. Evolve the threat. So this is also a big one. The Hound may literally be an evolving threat, but that's not what this means. The Hound is smart. It's shown to be smart. If you want our heroes to be stuck, to not attack, what you need to do is communicate the threat visually and make a reason they can't move. These characters shouldn't be freezing normally, but you can make them freeze. How do you do that? Well, you transition the Hound from just using Oscar as a shield to threatening his life actively. Now, this may have been something they actually were trying to imply, but this is the language of screen and cinema. You need to use close-ups, you need to use your camera to show things actively. It's not obvious writing or, writing to the base level or anything. This is the language of film. This is how things work on screen. So you can do this very easily with one close-up and maybe a slight position change. You have the shield moment. Jean readies his attack and gets blocked by the Oscar shield. Then it turns against Ren, readying his next attack, and it moves a claw and presses it into Oscar's neck. It shows this to Ren. Rather than repeating the shield tactic against 3 people in 3 directions, it changes the threat from "don't hit your friend" to "move and I'll kill your friend." Yes, we know it wants him, we know it's bluffing, but this thing's whole deal is it's smart. And then, this as an action would actively keep the team still with their weapons down how they are. Yelling things like, "What do we do? I don't know. If we move, it'll kill him," etc. There, your stillness and panic feels more legitimate than them standing around. It's tense, not dull. Then, them watching feels really intense and show people like Yang mad. Have her grunt and growl in frustration. Have her clenching her fist because she can't move and can't do something, even though she desperately wants to. If you have your characters forced to stay still, frozen and can't move, show their annoyed reaction, show their reaction to that situation, show them actively angry that they can't move, and then we understand it and empathize, rather than yell at the screen that they should be moving. This also means that they didn't use Oscar as a shield against Yang, so when she calls out, it's doing that. When Jean tries to make his attack, it doesn't feel redundant, like Jean should already know that. It isn't obvious, it's the first time it's doing that. And it feels like on-the-fly reactions and recognitions from people in a battle, so no one looks stupid here. It doesn't have that feeling like Jean was on pause while it used the shield tactic, which is how it currently feels now with the way the scene is. That's what I mean by evolving the threat. It starts out as a mauling, then it evolves to the whip arm, then it evolves to the shield tactic, then it evolves to the hostage situation. See, things are escalating, everything they try has a counter, and things go ever worse for them. And it stands to reason how they end up at the situation at the end. And number 6, choose the right direction. So this is another small detail that would really have helped this scene, and it's a big carryover from the last point. When the big wing transformation happens, the Hound is in pain, distracted, with its back to the group and standing over Oscar. Oscar is in danger here. He's absolutely in a bad spot, and attacking is risky, but it's literally the best time for the heroes to do it. When you get that wide shot, it's distracted, its back is to them, it's not actively threatening Oscar. All of these things can change with a slight alteration to how this transformation scene is executed. First off is something that just feels very wrong. While the creature is actively threatening Oscar, like in the last point, have it back away from the group, not turn its back on them. This is one thing that feels so off that no animal, especially no smart creature, would ever turn its back on an active threat, especially when its tactic is using a shield. It is so wrong on a base level, it feels so off to see. Instead, make it clear that it's watching them, and if they move, it'll kill him. So you have it back away, holding him up to them. Then, when it transforms, you have it struggle on all fours. Put its head down, but keep Oscar in a claw. Keep itself wrapped around his neck so it feels worse. Like this horrible writhing transformation might even cause it to accidentally kill him. And the team still can't move because if they hit it once, all it'd have to do is squeeze its claw and Oscar is dead. It keeps the threat present and facing our heroes. It's facing them. Oscar is facing them. They have to watch. Once again, acknowledge it. Fed up Yang actually starts to move to attack, and Ren yells, "No, it's still got Oscar." And it seems obvious, but she's frustrated. Her eyes narrow in anger. Cut to the close-up of Oscar being jostled around in its claw unconscious, with it pressed to his neck, and then you do the goo on the face moment. It's emotional, even worse for the team stuck facing him, all of them powerless to help. It plays a lot stronger as a scene. Instead of feeling like they're just stuck watching something with its back to them, you're instead empathizing that they have to watch this thing transform and almost kill Oscar, and they can't move. That frustration is now directed at the creature and the situation, not at the direction of the scene and our hero characters. It shifts the tone completely. Now, last of all, let's put it all together. You can all watch the scene and see how the scene goes for real. Now let's put our suggestions in and see how it plays now. Ready? So, Oscar and Ren are sitting on the bike. Out of nowhere, the Hound pounces in, smashes Oscar to the ground, mauls him, and shatters his aura. Keep that camera close, just like they did in the show. Then Yang shouts from off-screen while we're watching the attack. Don't show her yet. You hear her charge. The Grim looks around and she's right there, already close and in motion. Then, its big dog arm becomes a whip and slaps her into the wall. Cut to Ren and Jean. Ren still getting up, and they hesitate at what they just saw. Now it transforms while they're wary. Yang is still down, but don't actively show her lying on the ground. It picks up Oscar, and Ren does his attack, and is grabbed and thrown aside. So we don't repeat the whip thing, this time it's Ren that's grabbed, not Yang. The whip was the first indication that things aren't normal, so no need to repeat it, it can grab now. After Ren is thrown aside, Jean readies his sword like a lance to charge on the bike. Just as he's about to commit to the action, it holds up Oscar like a shield. Now Yang returns as she's halfway to her feet and shouts to him that it's what it's doing, and Jean is forced to stop at this revelation. It holds up Oscar to Ren, who is readying another attack. Jean gets off his bike and the trio start to slowly circle while it presents the shield towards the three of them, starting to walk backwards. Ren says let him go. It says no. People freeze in confusion, and it holds him up and pushes a claw into its neck. Yang tenses to attack, but Ren yells wait, saying it'll kill him if we move. It presents the threat to each of them, not just showing as a shield, but showing the threat, as it keeps moving backwards away from the trio who are now stuck and must stand in place, their brows furrowed and furious they can't move. Then, still facing them, it does its horrible wing transformation, still holding Oscar in its claw against the ground. The team is horrified, angry and breathing heavy. Then, once the sad goo on the face teardrop moment has happened and the wings have flared out across the street, it takes off over their heads, running along the street at them and jumping over them. And the second it moves past them, they all immediately turn, sprint to their bikes and start chasing. And if I need to add a little to the end, they do actually say what's happening on the comms, not just give a cheesy line. But that's a different issue. But there you have it. That's how I would restructure these scenes. These are the 6 tips we could use to make the scene flow a lot better without really changing anything. The direction the thing is moving, a slight change to the threat, and a different way of blocking, staging, and a slight editing change, and you can improve the pace, feelings, and emotions in this scene a lot more. And we haven't added a fight scene, we've just changed the orders of things a little bit, moved some pieces around, and suddenly this chess game feels a lot more competitive and a lot more engaging. There are still issues with this scene. Yang is definitely out of action too long, like compared to what she's done before, but because we're not showing it on screen as much, you don't get reminded of that as action flows. So we're doing our best to cover everything we can. This means that the pace is quicker, things feel more intense and frantic, and we still have those still moments for the things you want to present and show off, like the wing transformation, without it feeling contrived and without people yelling at the screen people should be moving. But that's everything covered for this video. What I think's important here is that a badly directed scene doesn't ruin a show. I was not happy with the episode, but that doesn't mean I hate RWBY. Everyone gets very hyperbolic whenever these things come up. The scene on paper is fine. The scene relatively makes sense, and you can stretch things here and there like we always do. But what is really a letdown for the scene is the execution. It's not that the characters are bad, the idea is bad, but it's the presentation. The art is great, the transformation is great, all of the pieces are great, but it's how you bring them together that matter. Every single production you've ever seen, every movie or TV show is basically a miracle that anything gets done, trust me. Which makes it even more of a miracle when amazing things happen, and this show has done amazing things. This is not a critique of RWBY as a show. There are so many moving pieces that go into a show like this, and visually that goes double for an animation. But at the end of the day, it's how cohesive all those things are working together. And unfortunately, it just didn't come together this time. It just wasn't doing its job. It's just lacking in its execution. However, it's alright to accept that this happened, to keep in mind how we're supposed to think things are for the narrative and carry on forward enjoying it. My aim is not to take down the show. I love this show, as you may have noticed. But no matter who we are, no matter what we know or how good we are at our job, jobs, there will always be mistakes and things that fall through. There's always things to learn from. That's life. So please continue to love and watch RWBY. I will. But the best thing we can do with anything we make is learn from it, both good and bad, and continue on to the next thing. If you like this, there's a button for that. Share it around if you can, if you think others would enjoy it. Comment if you have something to say, because I will be reading them as always. Absolutely subscribe if you'd like to see more. I do want your opinion on what you think this kind of video is like, of talking about on-screen things, direction, editing, sequences, all those kinds of things. It's a bit new for this channel. And with all that being said, my name is Riggo. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope I did alright.